She's half of one of the most successful comedy writing teams in the world. She's also a wife and mother of 5, 6 if you count her husband Jim. In 2017, she received news that changed her life forever. Doctors found a 6-centimeter tumor on her brainstem. She's here with me tonight to discuss that shocking diagnosis, what got her through it, and her new memoir out this week, When Life Gives You Pears, The Healing Power of Family, Faith, and Funny People. Please welcome a very funny person, Jeannie Gaffigan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Jeannie, how did you first become aware of what would end up being this pear-sized tumor in your brain? You take your children to a pediatric appointment, and what happens there?
Well, basically, I take them all in at once because in my crazy schedule, it makes more sense to just do one visit with 5 appointments rather than 5 different visits. So I've kind of over the years figured out a way to make this all work, and that was one of the things I did. So, but as the children get bigger, it seems that the exam room would get smaller and smaller because they would just be so many children, me, the doctor, the children, all the school forms, and there was a lot of chaos going on. But my doctor, my family practitioner who was seeing all my children, who also had an eye on me at the time, really should be, canonized as a saint in my book because she looked through all this chaos and noticed that I was favoring my right ear. And she was like, "What's wrong with your ear?" And I said, "Oh, I just can't really hear out of it anymore." And she was like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I just, things go, south, you get older, you wear reading glasses, like ears go." She's like, "No, ears don't go." She's like, "That's not a thing." So she looked at my ear and she did not see anything, visibly wrong, no swelling or anything like that. And so she, told me, "I think that you need to chill out a little bit with all this excessive caregiving and make yourself an appointment, and here's a referral to an ENT, and I want you to go follow up." And I'm sort of a rule follower, being like a Catholic girl.
A good Catholic girl.
So I did have her voice in my head saying, "You should follow up, you should follow up." So eventually I did follow up with the ENT, who also didn't find anything wrong with my ear, but he did say, "I want to see you in 1 month and see if this Flonase and this other thing kind of works for you." So I did go back because I knew that Dr. Hops was going to say, "Did you follow up with that pediatrician, with that ENT?" And so when I followed up with him, I just said, it didn't, to be honest with you, it didn't help at all. I mean, there's a whole bunch of funny stories about how I cheated on the hearing test too, which is kind of funny in the book.
It's all in
kind
the
of
book.
make light of, I'm very competitive when it comes to testing, and then I kind of realized that I should have not tried so hard on the hearing test because I actually did have a problem. So anyway, he just recommended that in order to see the whole picture, he suggested an MRI. And so it was when I got the MRI that, he called me a few hours after the MRI and said, "You don't need an ENT. You have a mass in your brain. And so I'm going to refer you to a couple of neurosurgeons." Basically, how this kind of ties in to my faith right away is the timing. And so this was the weekend before Easter.
Right, this is Holy Thursday. It has to be removed on Holy Thursday, this tumor.
Well, this is the timeline. The MRI that I went to was on Wednesday.
Okay.
I mean, on Tuesday. See, I had a brain tumor. Forgive me, I can't remember everything. So on Tuesday, I got the MRI, and on Wednesday, I called it limbo. That I understood what limbo was like because I was just waiting to find out yes or no. What is happening? Because I had no answers, I had no plan, I didn't know what to do. I called every prayer warrior I knew, except my mom because I didn't want to tell her yet. And I also called people I knew who were in science, and which I also believe that God has a strong hand in, he invented science.
Right.
So And also how this all ties into not only the timing of the liturgical calendar, but into the grand design and the brilliance of the beauty of the design of life. Because when I was a little kid, my good friend John and I, who played on the playground together, he and I have remained in contact over the years. And he grew up to become a neurologist. So I had a friend who I could call in Milwaukee and say, hey, I am kind of in limbo right now because I was told I have a mass on my brain. I was given some phone numbers of neurosurgeons, and I can't get in to see them until May. They have my report. I don't understand what it means. I picked up my scan at the radiology center, and I can't read it because my computer doesn't handle these kind of like complicated scans.
How did you and Jim react when you first got the news, when you first realized this is a mass on the back of my brainstem and they're telling me I need to get this removed pronto, within 2 days?
Okay, so when John got the scan, he said, get yourself to the hospital right away. And I would have never done that if I hadn't had this friend, because I was waiting a month for but they didn't see the scan. So when Jim and I went to Mount Sinai Hospital and got up to the chief of neurosurgery, which was like a miracle because I didn't even have an appointment, and they didn't know my name. It was like, I talk about it in the book as if Moses parted the Red Sea for me, and I just walked in because I was on my way to the emergency room when a series of phone calls and many miracles brought me to this man who was going to save my life. And when he put the scan on the big screen and I saw that giant glob that looked like a inverted pear stuck in my brain that was literally cutting off the brain from the body. And it was like all those little nerves, I could see it. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it was in my brain. And Jim and I were like, oh, God, help us that this is happening right now. I couldn't believe it. It was like I was looking at somebody else's life. Yeah. And that was Holy Thursday. So Good Friday was the day that I was going to be scanned all day. And so I called every nun I knew and said, please go to Mass for, go to 3 o'clock service for me because I'm not going to be able to go. And that was kind of a big day for us,
Right. Well, you write in the book, you should never underestimate the power of calling nuns, right?
I mean, they should get a consultation fee. They really should. They will go to Mass for you, and they will do the rosary for you if you can't do it. Nuns are, everyone should have a nun on speed dial.
A dedicated nun. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah. I had one. I still have a few.
It's just amazing.
Now, you write in the...
when Jim and I thought that, it wasn't like, I didn't think it was like a death sentence, but it was like, okay, this is a matter of life and death.
You write in the book that your Catholic faith, and I know it's significant in your life, but that you grew up the oldest of 9 in a Catholic household. Your mother was really the parent who made God very real to you. And you write this, if she wasn't dancing around the house to praise music, she was telling us the Lord is working, or offer it up. God was a real character in our house. He lived there. He was always with us and always protecting us. How did that experience as a child draw you back to the Catholic faith? I know you stopped going to Mass for a period. And how did it sustain you through this ordeal?
Just knowing that I wasn't alone. Just knowing that I was loved. Just knowing that there was a bigger picture, a bigger plan. That this was all part of a plan. And that suffering is necessary for joy.
Yeah, and it is. Particularly, I mean, it's the heart of the Catholic faith. It's really the heart of the big story we all conform ourselves to one way or another. Now, after the Easter Vigil Mass in 2017, you received the sacrament of the anointing of the sick. What was that like for you? That had to be a bit, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. It's also a very heavy thing when you're about to go into surgery.
Right. I mean, I think that moment was really the sort of put your money where your mouth is moment for me. Because we all sit there and we talk about, our children to go to heaven, and we're
Right.
all going to heaven, and our job is to get our children to heaven, and we're all going to heaven. And then all of a sudden, when you get faced with like a situation where you might die, you're like, but not now. I don't want to go to heaven. I want to stay here. I don't. And that's not really like, it's like you have to like really confront, like, do I believe in heaven? Am I going to go to God for eternity? And am I ready to, cleanse myself of all of my sins and say, I'm at your mercy. I believe in your mercy and your forgiveness and your love, and I believe in eternity. It's the moment that you have to put your money where your mouth is.
Now, your surgery went really well, but after the surgery, a 10-hour surgery, you end up contracting double lung strep pneumonia, which scares me just to say it, which puts you in the ICU. You're hooked up to machines, you can't breathe on your own, you can't swallow, you can't talk, and you are furious, according to the book. What did you learn about yourself in the ICU?
I learned that as much as we all, mothers, especially mothers of big families, and even, if you have one kid, sometimes it's the same thing. We try to juggle so much. And we have a little bit of what I like to call the martyr syndrome. We're like, oh, no, I'll do it. Mom will take it on. Mom will do anything. Don't worry, you go ahead. I'll clean this up. You go ahead. Have fun. But there is a part of me, I'm not going to generalize to all women, but I'm just myself, that kind of gets a kick out of that. Like it's a little bit of an addiction to caregiving. And I know that sounds like a humble brag, but it's really kind of like yucky. I had to like face this part of myself that wanted to control everything, and I was unable to control anything. And it really, I joke about this, but people like literally leave their life and leave all their possessions and leave their families and leave the comforts and go into a monastery to be with God. And I got forced there because I didn't make that choice. It happened. And so when I went into that ICU and I was fasting. And I was fasting from noise and the phone and the kids and the husband and human contact and human love. It was just me who I, was kind of a hideous monster without God, and God who gave me hope, light, and love, and pulled me out of that darkness that I went to when I was just faced with myself.
Wow. You write that God spoke to you. He gave you additional commandments, indeed, while you were in the hospital, such as tell Jim and the children you love them every day. 2, admit you were wrong. 3, take time to give each your undivided attention, and others. People have to buy the book to get the rest. Why did you think God gave you these personal commandments?
Yes, and also, like, I don't want to have delusions of grandeur, like he actually gave me commandments, but they were like concierge commandments, and I think God is giving us all,
addendas,
personal commandments that we just don't listen to because we're so distracted by life, and we can be like, I have to get to, even if you're like a holy roller, and you're like, I'm going to go to Mass on time, and all my kids are going to sit in the front row, and they're going to look great, and they're going to do their rosary, and you're checking off a tick list. You're not really experiencing, the beauty of life that God has given you, and experiencing those little moments of gratitude for even the bad things. And missing out on the big picture. So the commandments that God gave to me, which I try to be in a humorous way because I'm talking about something really heavy. Yeah. So you need a little comic relief from this story because the story is really heavy.
But it's a really funny book. You find the light side around the edges of these dark moments that sooner or later, you write about this in the book, sooner or later we all are going to find, unless you're some extraordinary superhuman person, you're going to find yourself in a medical emergency or a medical crisis with someone around you or your own. And in this book, your husband, and in your life, Jim becomes your main caretaker. And you write that his humor was so important to your getting better. He's doing characters while he's washing your hair. He even created that YouTube show called Feeding Frenzy. Tell us why he created that, Jeannie.
I mean, it was like, you know, as much as Jim, like, 'cause Jim really, you know, Jim is the type of person where he's like, you know what, I'm hungry. I'm going to go make myself a ham sandwich. I'm like, no, don't. You'll destroy the kitchen. You are going to make it too big of a mess. I will make the ham sandwich for you. So he was like, I'm not going to say he's like lazy or, you know, anything like that. Because like I said, I have a hand in it, right? I have a hand in taking care of him.
You've trained him to be this way.
Yes, but a bit. But he's also the youngest of 6, and I'm the oldest of 9. So do the math there. It's like it's a match made in codependent heaven, as I say. But so the thing is that it wasn't really in his wheelhouse to be a caregiver, even though he became a caregiver and he did learn some nursing and he learned some kid, you know, care, and he learned a lot of things. But what is in his wheelhouse is to be the funniest guy in the world. And so when I went down in the dumps, which I did, because I'm not going to say that after God gave me the commandments, and I actually do point this out in the book, it took me a while to listen to those commandments because I heard him and then I got distracted with myself and my ego and my needs and my, you know, selfishness again. And I think that it's a constant process. And that's why things like the rosary are such an important spiritual tool. Because it's like, I'm anxious, oh, I'm peaceful. I'm anxious, oh, I'm peaceful. Like, that's kind of going to be the cycle of my life forever. But Jim, in his wheelhouse is humor. So I got down in the dumps. And I was very upset about, you know, not being able to get up and take care of myself and, like, even, you know, walk to the bathroom or wash my hair or and when I was eating, even after I got off the machine, the fact that eating for me was getting formula, like, pumped through a tube in my stomach.
Right, you had a feeding tube.
I had a feeding tube. I had 2 different kinds of feeding tubes, but I had one that was coming out of my stomach because that's how I got out of the hospital. But once that machine was detached from me and I was able to, like, you know, use a syringe, to use the peg tube to have, like, formula at different, like, 3 or 4 times a day, and Jim had to do it. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I thought it was disgusting, and I was sad that I couldn't eat because you know, it's bad. You know, I mean, just ask Jesus. Fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. I mean, you have no idea. Like, try it sometime. It's not fun. So, anyway, Jim, to cheer me up, he invented this, like, crazy cooking show, and he put it on YouTube. He's like, we're going to make a cooking show about how I can inject the formula, and to make a romantic dinner, you can light a candle. But the thing was, I kind of went along with it because it was so funny. And then we received this amazing outpouring of gratitude from, like, the food tube community, which until that point I didn't even know existed, where they were like, thank you for normalizing this way that we have to live. Like, there are people that can't
digest food. Yeah, they have to have it.
They has to go right in the stomach. They can't ingest it. And it's like all of a sudden, like, the world just opened up to me. So one of the things that came out of this whole thing was me having a huge feeling of gratitude for my brain tumor. Wow. Like, it was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
Now, you were worried, though, at that period that you might have overwhelmed Jim and killed his comedy at one point, because he naturally felt the weight and pressure of this, I imagine.
Yes, no. So that phase, when I made that observation, was when I was in the hospital. Because when I was in the hospital, it was very kind of a negative prognosis, which I know more about now, because when I was in it, I was like, what's wrong? Why is everyone looking so sad? You all look like undertakers. What's happening? And I didn't understand how serious the situation was. But Jim was not funny. He was not funny in the hospital. He was busy. He was harried. He was anxious. He was snippy. and he was running around. And he probably was a lot like how I was before this all happened, running the schedule, running the kids, and overwhelmed with lessons and kids and getting this one there, here and there. And like, to be honest, Jim is the type, because I have a huge family. So now they have, and he does too, but like my siblings are at the age where there's like little kids now. Everyone has little kids and husbands, and when we have a family get together, there's like 30 people in the house. And Jim is kind of like, I'm gonna just go check my email, and he disappears for like the whole time. So at this time while I was in the hospital, like my entire family like came to my apartment, and we were very grateful because we had babysitters and
people to stay overnight with you.
Stay overnight with me in the hospital, people to stay overnight with my kids, because you can't be at two places at once. But Jim was also managing a lot of personalities, and learning nursing, dealing with the fact that I was miserable, and he felt responsible for my happiness. And he was in a kind of a different way than I've ever seen him before. And I was like afraid that maybe that I had like killed the funny man, this situation, and I felt guilt that I was the cause of this.
This is a very personal book. It's really also about your relationship, your family, how that has deepened. Now, you and Jim have written 7 comedy specials together. You directed many of those specials, including the TV show, which you were writing and directing. How do you work together? When do you find time to do that, Jeannie?
Well, I think that's why Jim and I kind of wound up together. I mean, besides, even though I believe that God designed our marriage for this moment in time, for the time when I almost died and I needed someone like Jim to pull me out, and my kids, and it's all part of this grand design. But I think that one of the reasons that we wound up together is because we both love to work. We love to produce, we love to work, and a lot of times when you're in a relationship with somebody who you may have like great, feelings for and romantic feelings for, but when it comes time to like really get down to like working, it's like you kind of move in different directions, because it's like there's like, you might be jealous of the work. I mean, I'm sure you've probably counseled people that have been like, my husband is married to his work, or my wife is married to her work. And the thing is that Jim and I found a common ground in our work. And we're very blessed and lucky that we were able to make a living and have success at our creative gifts, that we were able to write together and work together and produce together. And so that, it's not like, how do you do it? It's like, that's why we do it. It's because we love each other and we love the work. And definitely it's like sometimes a tightrope walking, because I'm like, wait, are we having a creative argument right now, or a husband and wife argument right now? I can't really, like, when did the line cross? Because it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't think that works when you take a joke that way. I don't think that's really gonna be work. And then he's gonna be like, you're just like your mother. And I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? No, not really, I just made that up. But, it's kind of like a mashup of professional and
the personal.
Marriage. Yeah.
Before I let you go, this is the first book where I've ever seen anyone in their acknowledgments thank a tumor. Why do you thank the tumor for coming into your life?
Well, I think that if this hadn't happened, I would have just probably not been able to see the work of God in my life as strongly and clearly. And I've always been vocal about my faith. Like, I don't care if I'm in a very secular business in a very secular city, and I've never been like really ashamed to be like, hey, all, I'm the Jesus freak in the room, okay? But at the same time, like now, it's like, and here is why, and I feel like I'm able to witness. I think that I can articulate better about how I can use my talents that are inherently given to me by God to build His kingdom. That to sound, that's kind of that's too strong, but I really feel like I can. I really think that I can love my children in a deeper way because I've been separated from them. I can love my husband in a different way because I saw him become me and understand me deeper.
Yeah.
Or more deeply. I hope my editor didn't hear that.
So it became a gift. I mean, ultimately, it became a gift for you.
It's
this
a gift.
horrible experience.
I have so much gratitude for that brain tumor.
Yeah.
Because it turned out good.
Yeah.
Just like, just like Good Friday turns into Easter.
Right. Well, Jeannie, I can't think of a better place to end it than there. I wish we could go on. Thank you so much for being with us and for your candor and for the very funny and moving book, When Life Gives You Pears, The Healing Power of Family, Faith, and Funny People by Jeannie Gaffigan, available at bookstores everywhere and online. Thank you again. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.